The rain came sideways across the hidden valley, silver in the moonlight and cold enough to turn every breath into mist. Padmé Amidala stood beneath the sheltering branches of a blackleaf tree and watched the storm crawl over the mountains. The little house behind her had no lights in the windows. It never did after dusk. Light could be seen from above. Light invited questions. Questions brought ships. Ships brought soldiers. And soldiers, more often than not, brought the Empire. She had learned to live without light. That was the cruel joke of her life. Once, she had lived in palaces bright enough to make the marble glow. Once, she had walked the Senate halls of Coruscant with her head high, surrounded by aides and guards and senators who believed her words could change the galaxy. Once, she had believed it too. She had believed courage could stop war. She had believed love could survive secrecy. She had believed Anakin Skywalker could be saved. Now she lived in a valley that did not exist on Imperial star charts, on a moon whose name had been erased from most archives before the Clone Wars began. She wore plain brown cloth instead of velvet, tied her hair beneath a farmer's scarf, and answered to no title at all. The woman who had been queen, senator, wife, and symbol was officially dead. Only her children knew her as anything true. A burst of laughter came from inside the house. Padmé turned instinctively. Leia's laughter. Sharp, bright, impossible to silence. It cut through the rain as if daring the whole galaxy to hear it. Then Luke laughed too, softer but just as joyful, and Padmé felt something inside her ache. They were growing too fast. Every morning they looked more like themselves, and every evening they looked more like him. Luke had Anakin's eyes when he asked questions. Leia had Anakin's stubborn chin when she refused answers. Luke reached for broken machines as if the metal spoke a language only he could hear. Leia argued with the wind if it blew the wrong direction. They were sunlight trapped in hiding, and Padmé loved them with a desperation that sometimes frightened her. The door opened behind her. Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped out into the rain without flinching. His cloak was pulled tight around him, his beard darker with water, his eyes carrying that familiar sadness he never put down. "You should come inside," he said. "The storm is getting worse." Padmé looked back toward the mountains. "Storms are honest. They announce themselves." Obi-Wan said nothing. She heard the silence. She had grown used to his silences. Some were patient. Some were guilty. This one was both. "They asked about him again," Padmé said. Obi-Wan's face tightened. Leia wanted to know if he had a statue somewhere. Luke wanted to know if he liked flying. They think their father was a hero who died in the war. "He was," Obi-Wan said quietly. Padmé turned to him. "Was he?" The rain filled the space between them. Obi-Wan looked older in that moment than he ever had during the war. Not physically. His face still held strength, and his hands were steady. But something in him had gone hollow on Mustafar and never returned. "I remember Anakin as he was," Obi-Wan said, "not as the thing he became." Padmé flinched at the word. Thing. She hated that word. She hated how easily Obi-Wan used it. She hated that part of her feared he was right. "You told me he died," she said. Obi-Wan's eyes closed. "Padmé, you told me he died on Mustafar. In every way that mattered, he did." "That is not the same thing." "No," Obi-Wan admitted. "It is not." The anger rose in her, old and sharp. She had swallowed it for years because survival demanded silence. She had buried it beneath bedtime songs, false names, ration counts, coded messages, and fear. But sometimes it rose anyway, demanding air. "You let me mourn a lie. I let you live." The words struck hard. Obi-Wan regretted them at once. She saw it in his face. Padmé stepped closer, rain running down her cheek like tears she refused to shed. "You let me raise his children believing their father was ash. I did what I believed was necessary to keep them safe from Vader." "From Anakin!" "From Vader," Obi-Wan repeated, and now there was steel in his voice. "You did not see what I saw in the temple. You did not feel what he had become. You remember the man who loved you. I remember the man who killed children because his master commanded it. Padmé's hand went to her chest. For a moment, the rain vanished. The valley vanished. She was back on Mustafar, smoke burning her lungs. Anakin's face twisted by fear and rage, his hand raised against her. Love curdled into possession. Then pain. Then darkness. Then a medical chamber and the cries of newborn children. I know what he did, she whispered. Then you know why he can never find you. Padmé looked toward the house. Through the wall, she could sense Luke and Leia. Not with the Force, but with a mother's certainty. They were safe for one more night. Warm for one more night. Laughing for one more night. One more night had become her entire life. I know what Vader is, she said. But I also know what Palpatine does. He does not simply corrupt. He devours. He twists love into chains and calls it destiny. If Anakin is alive inside that armor, even buried, even broken, then the Emperor did not take everything. Obi-Wan's expression hardened with pain. Hope can be dangerous. So can despair. Before he could answer, a small blue light flashed from the comm unit hidden beneath the porch boards. Both of them froze. The light flashed again. 3 pulses. A pause. 3 more. Obi-Wan moved first, kneeling and pulling the board free. He lifted the old unit, thumbed the receiver, and listened. Padmé watched his face change. What is it? She asked. A warning, he said. From Bail? Obi-Wan nodded once. An Imperial probe net swept through a nearby sector. One of his contacts intercepted a fragment of a transmission. The Empire is searching for a woman, believed dead. Padmé felt the valley tilt. Obi-Wan looked toward the house. We leave before dawn. Inside, Luke laughed again. Padmé closed her eyes. No more one more nights. Far away, aboard the Executor before it bore that name, Darth Vader stood in a chamber of black glass and listened to the dead speak. The recording was poor, damaged by static and distance. A woman's voice, disguised by encryption, spoke only a handful of words before the transmission dissolved. The children remain hidden. She cannot run forever. The officer who had brought it stood kneeling on the polished floor, too terrified to breathe loudly. Vader did not move. The chamber seemed to shrink around him. His breathing filled it. Harsh, mechanical, unforgiving. Play it again, Vader said. The officer's fingers trembled over the controls. The voice repeated. Static. A coded phrase. Then those words. The children remain hidden. She cannot run forever. Vader's fist closed. The console shattered. The officer collapsed backward, clutching at his throat, though Vader had not touched him. Where was this intercepted? My lord, the officer gasped. The origin was masked, but the relay trace suggests the outer rim, possibly several systems near the old refugee corridors. Vader turned away. The children. She. Not rebels, not smugglers, not senators. She. The name came unbidden, breaking through walls he had built from rage. Padmé. Impossible. He had seen her on Mustafar. He had felt her life fading. He had heard his master tell him she was dead, that he had killed her. That truth had been the furnace in which Vader was made. Every breath since had been punishment. Every command obeyed had been another stone placed over Anakin Skywalker's grave. But if she had lived, if Palpatine had lied, the thought did not arrive as hope. Hope was too gentle. It arrived as violence. It tore through him, scattering years of obedience like ash. Vader turned back to the officer. Who else has heard this? No one beyond the analysis cell, Lord Vader. Then the analysis cell no longer exists. The officer's eyes widened. Vader walked past him. Prepare my ship. Seal all records of this transmission under my authority. My lord, should I inform the Emperor? Vader stopped. The chamber went colder. No. The officer bowed so low, his forehead nearly struck the floor. "As you command." Vader left him there, shaking. In the corridor, stormtroopers snapped to attention. Vader saw none of them. His mind had already gone elsewhere. To fire. To a landing platform. To a face, pale with shock and heartbreak. "You are going down a path I cannot follow." He had hated her for saying it then. Hated her because she saw him. Hated her because she still loved what remained beneath the madness, and that love had been unbearable. Now the words returned not as accusation, but as a door. Perhaps there had been a path back. Perhaps he had burned it. Or perhaps the Emperor had hidden it from him. Vader's cape moved like a shadow behind him as he entered the lift. If Padmé lived, Palpatine would want her dead. If children existed, Palpatine would want them taken. And if they were his children... The lift doors closed. For the first time in years, Darth Vader was afraid. By dawn, the hidden valley was gone behind them. Padmé sat in the rear compartment of a battered freighter that had once hauled grain and now carried the last living pieces of a forbidden family. Luke slept with his head against her lap, one hand still curled around a broken hydrospanner he refused to leave behind. Leia sat awake beside the small viewport, knees drawn to her chest, watching clouds swallow the valley. She had not cried. That worried Padmé more than tears would have. Obi-Wan stood near the cockpit with R2-D2, speaking in low tones to Bail Organa over a scrambled channel. C-3PO hovered uselessly nearby, fretting in whispers about pursuit vectors, astrogation errors, and the likelihood of being vaporized before breakfast. Leia finally spoke. "Are we in trouble because of me?" Padmé looked down at her daughter. "No, sweetheart. Because I climbed the ridge yesterday? No. You said not to. You said someone might see." Padmé reached across and took her hand. "This is not because of anything you did." Leia stared at their joined hands. "Then why do we always have to run?" Luke stirred but did not wake. Padmé searched for the answer she had given too many times. Because the galaxy is dangerous. Because there are people who would hurt us. Because some secrets keep us alive. None of them were enough anymore. "Because your mother once stood against a very powerful man," Padmé said. "And powerful men do not like being reminded that they can be opposed." Leia considered that, solemn and fierce. "Then we should oppose him again." Despite everything, Padmé smiled. "You sound like a senator." Leia wrinkled her nose. "I want a blaster." "You are not getting a blaster." "Then a small one." "No." "Luke would want a ship." "Luke wants anything with an engine." Luke opened one eye. "I heard that." Padmé brushed hair from his forehead. "Good. Then hear this, too. You are both going to listen to Obi-Wan and me. No arguing, no wandering, no secret exploring." Leia and Luke exchanged the guilty look of children who had already imagined all three. The freighter shuddered. Padmé's hand tightened. Obi-Wan stepped out of the cockpit. "A patrol ship has entered the edge of the system." C-3PO made a strangled sound. "Oh dear." "Did they see us?" Padmé asked. "Not yet," Obi-Wan said. "But they are sweeping." The cockpit comm crackled. A cold, imperial voice filled the ship. "Unidentified freighter. Transmit clearance codes and prepare for inspection." Luke sat up fully now. Leia's face went pale, though her chin lifted. Padmé felt the years collapse into a single point. Obi-Wan moved toward the cockpit. "I can try to influence the commander if we get close enough." "No," Padmé said. He stopped. "If they board us and recognize you, it ends." "They may already suspect." "Then we do not let them board." Padmé rose, easing Luke away. Her old self returned like a blade drawn from silk. She entered the cockpit, took the comm from the pilot droid, and opened the channel. "This is the agricultural freighter Bright Harvest," she said, lowering her voice into the weary irritation of a woman who had dealt with too many officials. We transmitted clearance at the border marker. If your station lost it, that is your failure, not mine. Obi-Wan blinked. The Imperial officer replied, You will maintain proper tone when speaking to an agent of the Empire. And you will explain to the governor why a shipment of frost grain spoils in my hold, because you wanted to practice authority on a farmer. Silence. Leia crept near the cockpit door, eyes wide with admiration. The officer returned, less certain. Transmit again? Padmé nodded to R2. The little droid chirped and sent Bale's forged code packet. More silence. The patrol ship drifted across the viewport, gray and angular against the stars. Padmé held her breath. Proceed, the officer said at last. Alter course away from the restricted lane. Gladly, Padmé replied, and closed the channel. The freighter moved on. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Luke whispered, Mom lied to the Empire. Leia whispered back, Mom scared the Empire. Obi-Wan looked at Padmé with something like reluctant awe. I had forgotten. Padmé returned the comm to its cradle. I had not. Their escape should have ended there. It did not. The patrol ship exploded without warning. White fire filled the viewport. The shockwave struck the freighter and spun it hard enough to throw Padmé against the console. Alarms screamed. C-3PO toppled. Luke shouted. Leia grabbed the cockpit frame and held on. Through the burning debris, a black dagger of a ship emerged from hyperspace. Obi-Wan went still. Padmé knew before he said the name. Vader. His shuttle came through the wreckage like night given engines. The freighter's systems failed in bursts. R2 screamed in binary as tractor locks seized them. Obi-Wan drew his lightsaber, but did not ignite it. His face had gone pale beneath the beard. Padmé stood slowly. Get the children to the escape pod, Obi-Wan said. The tractor beam. Not for long. Obi-Wan! He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw the truth. He meant to stay behind. He meant to buy time with his life. Before either of them could move, the comm activated by itself. Static breathed. Then a voice filled the cockpit. Deep, mechanical, ruined. Padmé. Luke grabbed Leia's hand. Padmé could not breathe. The voice was impossible and familiar, a nightmare wrapped around a memory. Do not run, Vader said. If you run, the Emperor will find you. If you trust Kenobi, he will hide you until there is nothing left of your lives but fear. Obi-Wan stepped toward the console. Do not answer him. Padmé lifted a shaking hand. Anakin? Silence answered first. Then the breathing. That name has no meaning. It has meaning to me. The shuttle drew closer, filling the viewport. Vader's voice lowered. Are they mine? Padmé looked back. Luke and Leia stood together, frightened and confused, their faces reflections of a life Vader had never been allowed to know. Obi-Wan. Padmé. No. But lies had already stolen enough. Yes, she said. The sound from the comm was not speech. It was breath breaking against machinery. Padmé forced herself to stand taller. They are yours. In the Imperial shuttle, Vader gripped the arms of his command chair hard enough to bend them. His children. Alive. The Force, long a storm of pain and command, changed around him. Two bright presences flared at the edge of his awareness, untrained and radiant. One burned like sunrise over desert sand. The other flashed like lightning behind palace glass. They were afraid. They were strong. They were his. And Padmé. Her presence was dimmer than he remembered, veiled by exhaustion and grief. But it was there. Real. Living. Palpatine had lied. The revelation should have freed him. Instead, it filled him with murder. My lord, the pilot said carefully, the freighter is secured. Shall we prepare a boarding party? Vader stared through the viewport. Kenobi was aboard. He could feel him now. a shield of old sorrow and duty. The Jedi had hidden them. The Jedi had lied. But so had Palpatine. Everyone had taken pieces of his life and named it mercy. "Hold position," Vader said. "My lord, no one boards that vessel but me." The pilot bowed his head quickly. Vader rose. Each step toward the boarding tube echoed like a sentence. He had imagined Padmé dead for years. He had dreamed of her in fragments, her hair against his hands, her voice in the apartment on Coruscant, her eyes widening on Mustafar when he accused her of betrayal. Some nights he hated the memory of her because it made him weak. Other nights he clung to it because weakness was the only proof that something human remained. Now she lived. But what would she see when he stood before her? Not Anakin. Never Anakin. A towering mask. A machine that breathed like a wound. The hand that had choked her. The shadow that had hunted the galaxy for his master. His children would see a monster. The boarding seal locked. Vader stood before the hatch and did not open it. On the other side, Padmé held Luke and Leia behind her, while Obi-Wan stood with his lightsaber ignited. Blue light painted the freighter walls. "Stay behind me," Obi-Wan said. Luke stared at the blade. Leia stared at the door. "Is that our father?" Luke asked. Padmé knelt before them, though every instinct screamed to keep her eyes on the hatch. "Yes." Leia's voice was very small. "Is he bad?" Padmé looked at Obi-Wan, then at the door. "He has done terrible things," she said. "But once, he was good. Once, he was brave and kind and reckless, and he loved more fiercely than anyone I ever knew." "Does he love us?" Luke asked. Padmé's throat tightened. "I don't know." The hatch opened. Darth Vader stepped through. The children shrank back. Padmé rose. Obi-Wan lifted his saber into guard. "Do not come closer." Vader did not look at him. His mask remained fixed on Padmé. For a moment, no one moved. The years between them filled the room. Naboo sunlight, forbidden vows, war rooms, stolen nights, Mustafar fire, a funeral that never held a body, a suit built around a lie. Padmé spoke first. "You are alive." Vader's answer came rough through the vocoder. "So are you." "You knew?" "Not until now." She believed him. That hurt worse than doubting would have. Vader's gaze shifted. Luke and Leia stood behind her, trying to be brave in entirely different ways. Luke leaned out from Padmé's side, curiosity battling fear. Leia stood straight, with tears in her eyes and defiance on her face. "What are their names?" Vader asked. Obi-Wan's saber hummed louder as his grip tightened. Padmé drew a breath. "Luke, Leia." The names passed through Vader like light through shattered glass. Luke, Leia. He took one step forward. Obi-Wan moved between them. "That is close enough." At last, Vader looked at him. The air changed. "Kenobi." "Vader." The name struck Padmé like a door slamming. Vader's hand flexed. "You hid them from me." "I hid them from the Emperor." "You hid them from me." "Because you served him." Vader's breathing deepened. The walls groaned faintly. Luke grabbed Padmé's skirt. Leia whispered, "Stop." The word was not loud. It was not trained. It carried no technique. Yet something in the Force bent around it. Vader froze. Leia stared at him, frightened by her own courage, but unwilling to take the word back. "Stop hurting the ship." The groaning ceased. Obi-Wan stared. Vader looked at his daughter. His daughter. Padmé saw it then. Not on his face, because there was no face to read, but in the stillness. The monster had been commanded by a child, and he had obeyed. For the first time since the hatch opened, Padmé felt something other than fear. "Why are you here?" she asked. Vader turned back to her. The Emperor is searching for you. Because of you? Because of a transmission. He may not know the truth yet. He will soon. Then let us go. If I let you go, his hunters will follow every trail Kenobi leaves behind. Every contact, every safe house, every friend who thinks loyalty can hide from the Sith. Vader stepped closer, slower this time. I can hide you better. Obi-Wan laughed once, bitterly. You expect us to trust you? No. Good. I expect you to understand that I know him. The silence after that was terrible. Vader's voice lowered. I know how he thinks. I know what he will do when he suspects the children exist. He will not simply kill them. He will shape them. He will turn brother against sister, mother against child, memory against hope. He will make them weapons and call it destiny. Padmé's blood went cold. Obi-Wan lowered his saber a fraction. You helped him do the same to the galaxy, he said. Yes. The admission was plain. No defense, no excuse. Vader looked at Padmé. I cannot undo what I have done. No, she said, but I can stand between him and them. Luke peered up at him. Like a shield? Vader's mask tilted slightly. Yes. Leia frowned. Shields break. Vader answered her with absolute certainty. Then I will break last. Padmé closed her eyes. She wanted to hate him. Part of her did. Part of her saw Mustafar every time he moved. Part of her remembered his hand around her throat, the betrayal of his eyes, the screams of all those lost because he had chosen power over conscience. But another part remembered a boy on Tatooine who had given without being asked. A young man who laughed too loudly and loved too much. A husband who had held her as if the galaxy could end outside their window, and none of it would matter as long as she breathed. Both were true. That was the agony. An alarm shrieked from Vader's belt. He turned sharply. Obi-Wan raised his saber again. What is it? Padmé asked. Vader listened to the coded alert. Then he said, The Emperor. The freighter seemed to lose all warmth. Vader moved to the comm station and activated a secure channel. A small projection flickered into being. Emperor Palpatine, hooded and smiling as though he had already won. My friend, Palpatine said, you departed without informing me. Vader stood before the projection, blocking its view of Padmé and the children. I pursued a rebel signal. How diligent. It was false. Was it? Palpatine's smile widened. Padmé's fingers closed around Luke and Leia. Palpatine could not see them. She knew that. Yet she felt as if his yellow eyes were already in the room. I sense disturbance in you, Lord Vader, the Emperor said. Old wounds have opened. There is nothing. There is always something. You were never skilled at hiding pain from me. Vader's silence stretched. Palpatine leaned forward. Return to Coruscant. At once. I have not completed my search. You have completed what I require you to complete. The command beneath the words pressed into the air like poison. Padmé saw Vader's shoulders lock. For years that voice had owned him. Now it reached for him again. Very well, my master, Vader said. Palpatine's image flickered. Bring anything of interest with you. The transmission ended. No one breathed. Then Vader turned to Obi-Wan. He knows enough. Obi-Wan shut off his lightsaber. Then we have minutes. Less. Padmé looked at Vader. What happens now? We disappear. How? Vader moved toward the hatch. By making the Emperor believe he has already destroyed what he seeks. The plan was madness. That was the first reason Padmé believed it might work. Anakin's best plans had always sounded like disasters until they succeeded. Vader's was colder, sharper, but beneath it, she recognized the same reckless engine. He transferred Padmé, the children, Obi-Wan, and the droids to his shuttle. Then he sent the freighter forward on remote power, still locked in the false tractor signature. He ordered his pilot and guards into an escape capsule under the pretense of contamination. then crushed the capsule's transmitter so they could not report until recovered. Obi-Wan watched all of this with wary disgust. You sacrifice your own men easily. They will live. That comforts you? No. Padmé heard that answer and looked away. Vader set the freighter's reactor to overload near the remains of the patrol ship. The explosion would scatter debris across half the orbital lane. Imperial investigators would find enough biological trace to believe passengers had died. Bale's code packet would be discovered in the wreckage, leading suspicion toward a rebel extraction gone wrong. And when Palpatine tests the ashes, Obi-Wan asked, he will find what I provide him. Vader opened a sealed compartment and removed a small black case. Padmé stared at it. What is that? Evidence from Naboo, preserved by the Emperor. Hair, blood, fragments from your old apartment. Trophies he kept in case grief was needed to control me. The words turned Padmé's stomach. Palpatine had kept pieces of her like tools. Vader placed the case aboard the doomed freighter. His hand lingered there. Padmé watched him, and for a moment the mask seemed less like armor than a prison. The freighter drifted away. From the shuttle viewport, Luke and Leia watched it become a distant ember among the stars. Vader stood behind them, not too close. Luke looked back. Is everyone going to think we're dead? Yes, Vader said. Leia crossed her arms. I don't like that. Neither did your mother. Padmé turned sharply. The words hung there, strange and almost gentle. Leia studied him. Did you think she was dead? Vader did not answer at first. Yes. Were you sad? Obi-Wan looked away. Vader's breathing filled the cabin. I became something worse than sad. Leia seemed to consider this. That is not an answer. No, Vader said. It is not. Luke touched the viewport. I would be sad if Mom died. Vader's hand curled at his side. Padmé stepped closer to her son. Luke. But Luke kept looking at the dark figure behind him. Were you sad like that? Vader's voice was almost too quiet to hear through the mask. Yes. The freighter exploded. Fire blossomed in space, brilliant and silent. For an instant, it looked like a sunrise. Padmé felt Luke flinch. Leia took his hand this time. Vader watched the flames die. So ends Padmé Amidala, again, Obi-Wan said. Padmé looked at him. No. He turned. She lifted her chin, old royalty returning to her posture. No more deaths. No more graves made of lies. We are alive. We will remain alive. Let the Emperor believe what he wants. I am done burying myself for his convenience. Something like pride moved through Obi-Wan's sadness. Vader said nothing, but he turned the shuttle away from the wreckage and took them into hyperspace. Their refuge was not a house. It was a fortress carved inside the dead moon of a ruined separatist listening post, abandoned since the war and hidden behind a permanent storm of metallic dust. Vader had known of it because Anakin Skywalker had destroyed its fleet years before. The Empire never claimed it. The Republic had never catalogued it properly. It was a grave of machines, and therefore, in Vader's mind, a fitting place for a family that needed to vanish. Padmé hated it immediately. The halls were cold. The air smelled of metal and old power cells. Most of the rooms were dark until R2 bullied the generators awake. C-3PO declared the place unsuitable for civilized beings, uncivilized beings, droids, plants, or possibly fungus. Leia liked the command center. Luke liked the hangar. Obi-Wan liked nothing. Vader assigned them quarters far from his own. He did not ask Padmé to speak with him. He did not remove his mask. He did not approach the children unless they approached him first. That restraint unsettled Padmé more than force would have. For days, they lived like prisoners protected by their jailer. Obi-Wan meditated near the old sensor tower. Padmé restored the communications room, searching for safe ways to reach Bale. The children explored under strict boundaries, which they violated with predictable creativity. Vader disappeared for long stretches into the lower levels, where broken war droids lay in pieces and the walls were thick enough to hide his rage. At night, Padmé sometimes heard metal scream. She knew he was tearing the old machines apart. She wondered if he imagined Palpatine's face on them. On the 5th night after their arrival, Padmé found Luke sitting outside Vader's sealed chamber. Her heart nearly stopped. Luke. He looked up, guilty. I didn't go in. Why are you here? He shrugged. He makes sad sounds. Padmé stared at the door. From within came the low rhythm of Vader's breathing, but beneath it, faint and terrible, something else. A strained mechanical rasp. Pain. He is hurt, Luke said. Yes. All the time? Padmé knelt beside him. I think so. Luke looked at his hands. Can we fix him? The question was so innocent, it nearly broke her. I don't know. He fixed the ship door yesterday. That is different. Maybe not. The door opened. Padmé rose quickly, pulling Luke behind her. Vader stood there, towering and silent. Luke leaned around her. Are you mad? No. You sounded mad. I was not mad at you. Luke nodded as if that settled everything. Do you want help fixing something? Padmé closed her eyes in alarm. Luke! Vader looked down at the boy. I am not certain I can be fixed. Luke frowned. Everything can be fixed a little. For a long moment, Vader did not move. Then he stepped aside. Padmé stiffened. Vader spoke to her, not Luke. You may come with him. It was not permission. It was reassurance. She should have refused. Instead, she entered. The chamber had been converted into a workshop. Pieces of Vader's armor lay on a table beside tools, wires, breathing regulators, and scorched components. Padmé saw the damage then. Not fresh wounds, but a life built around injury. A body held together by machinery designed with cruelty instead of mercy. Luke approached the table with reverence. This is bad wiring, he said. Vader tilted his helmet toward him. Padmé almost laughed from sheer shock. Luke picked up a small calibrator. Who did this? The Emperor's medical droids. Luke made a face. They're not very good. No, Vader said. They were very obedient. Padmé understood. Her anger returned, not at Vader this time, but at the master who had rebuilt a man as a cage and called it salvation. Luke worked for nearly an hour under Vader's instructions, replacing a damaged regulator in a spare chest panel. Padmé watched them from a few steps away, unable to decide whether the scene was horrifying or tender. When Luke finally yawned, Vader said, Enough. I can keep going. You are tired. I'm not. You are swaying. Luke looked down, as if surprised to find his body betraying him. Padmé guided him to the door. Bed. Luke looked back. Can I help tomorrow? Vader paused. Yes. Luke smiled. The smile struck Vader harder than any blow. After Padmé sent Luke to his room, she returned to the corridor and found Vader still standing in the doorway. You should not encourage him, she said. He has skill. He is a child. I know. Do you? Vader turned toward her fully. Padmé did not retreat. The corridor lights flickered over his black armor. She remembered touching Anakin's face once beneath golden Naboo light, laughing because he had grease on his cheek and refused to admit it. She remembered the warmth of his skin. Now there was only polished darkness. I know I have no right to him, Vader said. Or to Leia. Or to you. The words stunned her. I know that every moment I stand near them is a mercy I do not deserve, he continued. If you tell me never to speak to them again, I will obey. Padmé's throat tightened. Would you? Yes. Because you love them? Because I harmed you. That answer cut through her defenses more cleanly than any plea would have. For years, she had imagined what she would say if she ever faced Anakin again. She had imagined accusations, tears, perhaps even forgiveness, spoken like a miracle. But Vader did not ask for forgiveness. He stood before her like a condemned man who had already accepted the sentence. You did, she said. I know. You broke my heart. I know. You made me afraid of the person I loved most. Vader's head lowered. Padmé stepped closer, voice shaking now. And still, when I look at our children, I see you before all of this. I see the boy who wanted to free slaves. I see the man who believed he could save everyone. I see what the Emperor stole, and what you surrendered. The respirator dragged in one breath. I cannot be him again." "No," Padmé whispered. "But you can choose what you are now." Vader looked down the corridor toward the children's rooms. "What if what I am is only useful as a weapon?" "Then choose what you are aimed at." The words settled between them. Neither of them touched. But for the first time, Padmé did not feel only haunted by his presence. She felt the faintest tremor of possibility. The Emperor arrived as a nightmare arrives, not with warning, but with certainty. The moon's sensors failed all at once. R2 screamed from the command center. Red lights strobed across the fortress. Obi-Wan came running, saber already in hand. Padmé was with Leia in the archive room when the floor shook. Vader appeared over the internal comm. "Padmé, take the children to the lower hangar." "Is it him?" "Yes." Leia went pale. Padmé grabbed her hand. "Move." They found Luke already in the corridor with C-3PO, clutching a toolkit. "I can help." "You can run," Padmé snapped. "But, Luke." He obeyed. Obi-Wan met them at the lift. "The shuttle?" "Vader is preparing it remotely," Padmé said. "And Vader?" Another tremor struck. Far above them, something massive docked with the fortress. Padmé did not answer. They reached the lower hangar as blast doors began closing behind them. Vader's black shuttle powered up, wings unfolding like a predator waking. R2 rolled aboard. C-3PO followed while complaining that this was exactly the sort of day he had repeatedly warned them about. Luke stopped at the ramp. Leia stopped beside him. Padmé turned. Vader stood at the hangar entrance. Beyond him, far down the corridor, red light flickered. A second red blade. Then another. Imperial Royal Guards. And behind them, small and hooded and smiling, came the Emperor. "My," Palpatine's voice echoed through the hangar, soft as wrought. "What a touching little sanctuary." Vader ignited his lightsaber. Crimson filled the air. "Go," he said. Padmé did not move. Palpatine's gaze slid past Vader and found her. "Senator Amidala," he said warmly, "how death has improved your talent for inconvenience." Padmé lifted her chin. "Chancellor?" His smile thinned at the old title. Then his eyes moved to the children. Luke stepped closer to Leia. Leia stepped in front of Luke. Palpatine's delight was obscene. "Ah," he breathed. "There it is. The future." Vader attacked. He crossed the hangar threshold like a thunderbolt, blade crashing against the royal guards before they could advance. One fell. Another staggered. Palpatine did not move. He watched Vader with the satisfaction of a teacher observing a predictable student. Obi-Wan pushed Padmé toward the ramp. "Now!" She pulled the children aboard, but Leia tore free. "Father!" The words struck everyone. Vader faltered for the smallest fraction of a second. Palpatine raised his hand. Lightning erupted. It slammed into Vader and drove him to one knee. His armor sparked. His breathing twisted into a broken roar. Luke screamed. Padmé grabbed Leia around the waist as the girl fought to run to him. "Anakin!" Padmé cried. "Palpatine." "Yes, call him that. It makes his suffering so much richer." Obi-Wan charged. For a moment, blue and crimson light met in chaos. Obi-Wan fought the guards while Vader rose beneath the lightning, step by impossible step. Palpatine's smile faded. "You forget your place." Vader kept walking. "My place," he said, "is between you and them." Palpatine's lightning intensified. Vader's armor burned. Systems failed. Smoke rose from his chest panel. Luke broke from Padmé and ran to the edge of the ramp. "No!" The Force surged. A wave burst from Luke and Leia together, raw and uncontrolled. Tools flew, crates overturned. The lightning bent, scattering across the hangar floor. Palpatine turned his yellow eyes toward them in wonder. Vader saw that look. The same look Palpatine had given him when he was young and afraid and powerful. Possession. Vader, not the machine. The man. He drove forward through the broken lightning and seized Palpatine by the robes. The Emperor snarled, hands blazing, but Vader lifted him and hurled him into the hangar's power core. The explosion swallowed them both in white fire. "Padmé!" The blast threw Obi-Wan backward. The shuttle shields flared. The hangar roof split open to space, emergency fields flickering. Alarms drowned everything. When the light faded, Palpatine was gone. Vader lay amid burning debris. Padmé ran before Obi-Wan could stop her. "Padmé!" he shouted. She reached Vader and fell to her knees beside him. His armor was ruined. His helmet cracked along one side. The respirator failing. Luke and Leia came after her. Now, no defiance left. Vader turned his broken mask toward them. "Stay back," he rasped. Padmé touched the side of his helmet. "No. Systems failing." "Then we fix them, Luke." Vader's gloved hand twitched. "Not this time." Leia knelt beside him. "You said shields break." "Yes." "You said you would break last." A sound came from him that might have been pain, might have been laughter, might have been grief. "I tried." Padmé looked at the cracked helmet. "Let me see you." Obi-Wan arrived behind her, silent now. Vader did not answer. Padmé placed her hands on the release seals. "Anakin." The name no longer felt like denial. It felt like a key. With Obi-Wan's help, she removed the helmet. The face beneath was scarred, pale, and ruined by years of suffering. It was not the young man she remembered. It was not the monster she feared. It was someone in between, someone broken almost beyond recognition, but his eyes were still blue. Dim, but blue. Luke stared, tears streaming down his face. Leia reached for his hand. Anakin Skywalker looked at his children with his own eyes. "I am sorry," he whispered. Padmé bent close. "I know. I loved you. I know that too." His gaze shifted to Obi-Wan. For years, hatred had lived between them like another person. Now it stood tired and useless in a burning hangar. "Master," Anakin breathed. Obi-Wan's face crumpled. "I failed you." Anakin's fingers tightened weakly around Leia's hand. "No, I did." Luke leaned close. "Don't go." Anakin looked at him. "I was lost for a long time." "We found you," Leia said. His eyes moved to Padmé. For one impossible moment, Mustafar vanished. The war vanished. The armor, the lies, the Emperor, the years of darkness all receded. There was only a man, looking at the woman he had loved, and a woman looking back, with grief too deep for hatred to hold. "Yes," Anakin whispered. "You did." The hangar shook again. Obi-Wan looked upward. "The fortress is coming apart." Padmé did not move. Anakin's breathing grew thinner. "Go," he said. "No. Padmé, I lost you once because everyone decided what I needed to survive. I will not leave you because you tell me to." Something sparked in his damaged chest panel. Luke wiped his face and grabbed his toolkit with shaking hands. "I can try." Obi-Wan knelt beside him. "So can I." Leia looked at Padmé. "Tell us what to do." Padmé stared at them all. Her son, her daughter, Obi-Wan, and Anakin broken on the floor. The protector had fallen. Now they would protect him. "Get him to the shuttle," she said. They moved together. Obi-Wan lifted with the Force. Luke dragged cables aside. Leia held Anakin's hand and refused to let go. Padmé ran beside him, counting each failing breath, as if love alone could command the next. The shuttle launched as the fortress collapsed behind them. Debris tore across the shields. R2 screamed at the controls. C-3PO prayed to several manufacturers at once. Obi-Wan stabilized Anakin in the rear compartment, with field med supplies never meant for such damage. Luke helped despite tears blurring his eyes. Leia sat at Anakin's side and ordered him not to die, with all the authority of a princess she had not yet become. Padmé took the co-pilot seat. Outside, the dead moon fractured in silence. No Imperial fleet waited beyond it. Palpatine had come in secrecy, hungry to claim what Vader had hidden. His arrogance had left no witnesses close enough to understand what had happened. For the first time in years, the shadow over the galaxy trembled. Padmé sent one coded message to Leia Organa. "Alive. Moving." The Emperor has fallen. Send no reply." Then she cut the transmitter. Behind her, Anakin's breathing steadied by the smallest measure. Not healed, not redeemed, not forgiven by the galaxy, but alive. Padmé looked through the viewport at the stars. Luke came forward after a while, exhausted and pale. Leia followed, leaning against him, though she pretended she was not. "Where do we go?" Luke asked. Padmé glanced back. Obi-Wan sat beside Anakin, one hand resting lightly over the damaged respirator controls, eyes closed in concentration. Anakin slept, or hovered near sleep, face uncovered, scars visible. No mask between him and the people who had chosen not to abandon him. Padmé turned back to the stars. For years she had hidden from the galaxy. For years, Vader had served its darkness. For years, Obi-Wan had guarded hope by burying truth. Now truth had found them all, wounded and dangerous and alive. "We go somewhere quiet first," Padmé said. "Somewhere safe enough to breathe." Leia looked at the stars. "And after that?" Padmé thought of senators who had whispered rebellion, systems crushed beneath fear, clones discarded, Jedi hunted, worlds waiting for proof that the Empire could bleed. She thought of Palpatine's smile vanishing when Vader stood between him and the children. She thought of Anakin's eyes. "After that," Padmé said, "we stop running." Luke smiled faintly. Leia did too. Behind them, from the rear compartment, came a broken whisper. "Padmé." She rose at once and went to him. Anakin's eyes opened halfway. "The children? Safe. Kenobi?"
"Here. The Emperor?"
"Gone." He absorbed that with a breath that trembled. "I do not know how to live after this," he admitted. Padmé sat beside him and took his hand, the real one that remained beneath ruined synth skin and scars. "Neither do I." His eyes glistened. She leaned closer. "But we will learn," she said. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched into hyperspace, no longer a cage of distant lights, but a road. For the first time since the fall of the Republic, Padmé Amidala did not feel like a ghost haunting her own life. She felt afraid. She felt wounded. She felt uncertain of everything ahead. But beside her, Anakin Skywalker breathed. Her children slept safely beneath the same roof of stars. Obi-Wan kept watch. And somewhere behind them, in fire and wreckage, the Empire had lost the secret it most desired. The galaxy would not heal in a day. Darkness did not vanish because one tyrant fell. There would be admirals, governors, warlords, inquisitors, and cowards eager to inherit fear. There would be questions no apology could answer. There would be trials, grief, anger, and worlds that would never forgive the name Vader. Padmé knew all of that. Still, as the shuttle fled toward dawn, she held Anakin's hand and listened to the fragile rhythm of a life that should have ended long ago. Once he had broken everything trying to save her. Now, at last, he had saved them by letting the darkness break against him instead. Not as a lord, not as a weapon, not as the Emperor's shadow. As a shield, as a father. As the man who had fallen farther than anyone, and for one burning moment, had chosen to stand. Padmé lowered her forehead to his hand. The storm was not over, but the light had returned.